If you were to ask anyone to name a few of the world's most developed and wealthy nations, you would likely hear a list of familiar names: Germany, the United States, Japan, the United Kingdom, and Switzerland. In the minds of people everywhere, these countries are recognized as the global elite, nations that have reached the pinnacle of science, technology, and industry through highly efficient political systems. However, within this exclusive group, there is another country whose name is rarely mentioned alongside the others: Australia, the world's largest island. By every index and every economic measure, Australia is a wealthy, developed, and prosperous nation with immense stability. Both its citizens and the international community recognize this fact. Yet, despite this, Australia has never truly managed to embed itself within the core political, economic, or even socio-cultural narratives of the world's great powers. For example, most people can easily name the President of the United States, the Chancellor of Germany, or the Prime Ministers of the UK and Canada, a country very similar to Australia. But it is highly unlikely that an average person with standard political knowledge knows who is currently at the head of the Australian government. For many, the extent of their knowledge about Australia ends with kangaroos and koalas. But why? Why does a nation that is so wealthy, a nation that controls a massive part of the global supply chain for critical raw materials like iron ore, coal, and liquefied natural gas, have no significant or influential role in global economics and politics? Why does the world barely even recognize its presence? In this video, we will explore the story of the Australian economy and the path it has taken to reach its current position. We will analyze why, despite its vast wealth, it has failed to play a role on the global stage proportional to its size. The secret to powerful and sustainable economic growth, the kind that makes a nation truly wealthy and raises the standard of living, is one thing and one thing only: productivity. Everything that media outlets and economic analysts cite as drivers of growth, such as investment in technology, education, or foreign trade, ultimately works by strengthening the overall productivity of the economy. Most people are familiar with these concepts, but there is one factor that is rarely talked about, yet remains one of the most critical drivers of productivity: comparative advantage. Every country is naturally better at doing something specific. East Asian nations, for instance, are the world's leading manufacturers of electronics, possessing an almost inherent talent in that field. Other nations, like Singapore, Panama, or Turkey, are located at the world's most vital economic crossroads, making their foreign trade faster and cheaper than landlocked regions. Even having natural resources is a major comparative advantage, especially if they are located in places where extraction is cheap and easy. For example, Brazil has massive shale oil reserves, but because they are buried under valuable farmland or in inaccessible layers, the cost of extraction is too high to be profitable at current prices. This brings us to Australia's greatest comparative advantage: possessing vast and diverse natural resources that are incredibly easy to extract. These minerals are located in flat, uninhabited areas, and Australia's mineral veins have some of the highest purity levels in the entire world. Many might not realize that before the year 2000, despite being a developed nation, Australia did not possess its current level of staggering wealth. In the year 2001, Australia's GDP per capita was only $19,000, while the average for developed nations was $22,000. The reason for this was simple. The world's largest island had no world-renowned, successful industry to drive its exports. A country's economic status is heavily dependent on its exports. Exports don't just drive real growth through demand, they increase the value of the national currency, which in turn raises the nominal GDP and the people's dollar-denominated income. At the time, Australia lacked both a high-tech industry and a strategic geography to boost its trade. However, everything changed at the dawn of the 21st century. China, the world's most populous nation, opened its doors to investment and moved away from a planned economy experiencing massive growth. By the 2000s, China's industrial explosion began, and its primary requirement was raw materials, specifically steel. While China is a major producer of iron ore, its demand was so immense that it had to look elsewhere. The closest nation to China overflowing with iron ore was Australia. In 1998, Australia's iron ore exports to China were only 33 million tons. Within just 14 years, by 2012, that number reached 730 million tons, a nearly tenfold increase. This boom in mining created millions of jobs and catapulted Australia's economy from $380 billion in 2001 to over $1.5 trillion by 2013. So, the critical question arises, why does a country with such a massive GDP and a vital role in the global supply chain possess almost no significant political or geopolitical power? Why do you hear the name of a small country like Switzerland in the news more often than the sixth largest nation on Earth? To understand this, we must look at geography. Australia is a vast island isolated between the Pacific and Indian Oceans, located entirely in the southern hemisphere. For thousands of miles in every direction, no major civilization has historically existed. This extreme isolation is the primary reason for Australia's lack of global influence. Unlike the United States, which faces the Atlantic toward Europe, Australia is surrounded by vast, empty stretches of ocean. This distance significantly increases the cost of trade and transportation with almost all of the world's major economies. Australia is rarely the first choice for trade for any nation, except when it's absolutely necessary. Even China, its closest major trade partner, is over 5,000 kilometers away. Beyond geography, the internal conditions of the country also limit its power. Most of Australia consists of arid, uninhabitable deserts. Despite its massive landmass, it has a population of only 26 million people. If Australia had double its current population, its economy could potentially reach $3.3 trillion, making it the seventh largest economy in the world and granting it far more cultural and political leverage. Another major factor diminishing Australia's global presence is the lack of globally recognized consumer products. Everyone is familiar with the American iPhone, the German Mercedes-Benz, or various Chinese electronic brands. But can you name a single Australian brand that is a household name worldwide? Even much smaller countries like Switzerland have Rolex, and Finland has Supercell. While the steel in your car or the metal components in your smartphone likely originated from Australian mines, no one knows or cares where the raw materials came from. Australia doesn't even have a major global website or digital platform to keep it in the minds of the global public. In summary, Australia has become one of the wealthiest and most prosperous nations on Earth by leveraging its comparative advantage, the extraction and export of high-value natural resources. This generates hundreds of billions of dollars in revenue for its small population. However, in terms of industry and technology, Australia lags far behind other major economies like Germany, the US, or China. In the New World Order, Australia plays its designated role, a reliable and cheap supplier of raw materials. It exports its wealth and, in return, consumes Japanese cars and Chinese electronics. Unless this fundamental structure changes, Australia will likely remain a vital tool in global supply chains rather than a nation that leads them.